Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel, Designed Alliance. Here at Designed Alliance, we believe that where we spend the majority of our day greatly impacts the rest of our lives. And for most of us, that is work. We know that leadership and management are stewards of the culture and environment that we all work in. So our purpose, our mission here at Designed Alliance is to improve those people so that they can in turn improve the quality of lives of everybody that works in those environments. So today, who we have today is Ben Frieders. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Tom. I am Ben Frieders. I was a Navy chief submarine veteran of 12 years on two fast attack submarines. And then that's how I met Tom. Tom and I were chief petty officers together in the engineering department. I was a nuclear chemistry supervisor for that amount of time. I transitioned out of the Navy in 2019 into the civilian world. Now I'm a regional sales account manager for a water treatment company named Kim Reddy, and I'm happy to be here.
Our theme recently has been talking about leadership roles, and then these roles are an identity we take on to help us with leading and managing. So those roles being teacher, team coach, and then a visionary. And so in the theme of teacher, the question for today for you, Ben, what is the most important failure a leader needs to make and why?
That's a really good question, Tom. We've had a lot of discussions in the many years that we've known each other on how a leader really affects an entire culture. And I think, from my perspective, the most important failure that a leader needs to make for their personal growth is they need to directly fail somebody that they're leading. And I mean that wholeheartedly because I think once that happens, they will really truly see the impact of their leadership on people's lives, not just their business, but also a family, right? The person's mental state and their financial implications. Once a leader really fails that person in some way, whether it's their day-to-day interactions, whether they didn't follow up on something they should have, or whether it was the culture that they themselves created at that place of work. Once that failure happens and they absorb that failure, I think it will really change the trajectory of their personal and professional development.
All right. So do you have an example of, you don't have to get too specific, but what were the tangible things where you were before with leading to where you acknowledged or saw your failure, how you failed a person?
I think my personal failure was actually recently. I'll use a recent example. So I'm a regional account manager. We have a sales and service team that is split apart. The account managers are responsible for those service technicians to go manage the accounts that they own. About 6 months ago, I helped interview a service technician. On the phone, it seemed like it was going to be a good fit. He seemed like he had good energy and he would be enthusiastic to join our company. Well, as time went on, I was part of his training process. My duties that were in a different region became more and more stringent. So I had less and less time with him. And we found out a few weeks ago that he put in his notice, and his last day actually was yesterday, which was Friday. And I did a exit interview with him 2 days before his last day. And he said, you're the only one that's really taken the time to talk to me about why I'm leaving. Everybody else just kind of wrote me off. And I feel that if I had spent more time with you, I don't think I would be going anywhere. And that really impacted me, that while it was not my direct responsibility, I had the potential to change the trajectory of his employment and his culture at work. And I didn't do that. So I think that was a recent example. And I think it's important for leaders to understand. And even if you are not directly responsible for that person, if you are a leader, you are influencing peers, you're influencing people who you report to, and you're influencing people around you and below you. I had a chance to change that trajectory, and I didn't. I didn't, and we lost somebody because of it. Maybe not directly because of me, but I had influence.
when you think like leadership, right? And you're thinking about boundaries, I think that a lot of people assume that the boundaries of leadership and management is in strictly like the domain of work, right? And so, where do you think, like a leader, manager, supervisor, where do you think the boundaries of impact, like they should draw the lines, like in their head, for in order for them to be successful?
Let me have you clarify the question. So, in terms of personal and professional boundaries, is that what you mean? Can you define what
Yes.
you mean by
Yes.
boundaries?
In my head, I can very easily see where someone's like, "Well, that's a personal problem, right? Like, you got to separate your personal life and your professional life, and you got to manage both of those." And so, even so, my question is that yeah, you could have impacted this person's life, right, for the better, and you could have made their life better professionally. Where should like the line of care end?
Okay, I'm with you now. When I think of personal and professional boundaries, as you and I both know, there are no real personal boundaries in the military. We were always told to take care of your people, and that meant that you basically own them, right? So any action that they had outside of the workplace itself still directly impacted their professional career. So that's, you know, the bad things, drinking and driving, doing, illegal substances, or even just associating with other people who are doing that. You could still get in trouble for those same things. That's not how it is out in the civilian world. Once you punch that clock or you turn off your computer for the day, nobody really interacts with you on a personal level unless that leader has made sure that they have done so. So back to your question is, I think a leader needs to know enough about their people to understand the implications of the person's mindset and their workplace, right? And I think that just comes down to being a human, right? Asking people about their family, about their significant others, about their children, about what they like to do in their off time. And I truly believe that creates camaraderie and it creates a better culture, because otherwise you're just looked at as a number. Otherwise you're just an employee that comes to work every day. And knowing the struggles that they have at home, if you have a personal relationship with them, you can help them through that, and they feel supported, that you can make their lives better.
Okay.
I was going to say is that so to really answer your question, back to the main question, is I think it is wholly dependent upon the person themselves of what they allow that line to be drawn. Because some people are like, no, I don't want to talk about anything. I'm here to do a job, and that's it. And that's okay too.
Okay. But it's learning about your people to know where that is. Okay,
Exactly.
I'm sure that you also have a question for me, as we usually do. Curious as to what your question for the day is.
So my question for you, Tom, is we talked about, you asked me what about my failures or how I personally failed. And we've had a lot of experience with the different kinds of leaders in creating good and bad culture. So along those lines of failure and failing an organization, what do you think are toxic leadership traits that would constitute, failure as a leader? What toxic traits uh, could lead to failure in an organization?
Oh, that's good. Okay, so I think the first toxic trait that I and it may not look toxic, but it really is a lack of involvement on like the team's day to day. I think that's like actually very toxic. I think that sometimes we look at like leadership management, whatnot, and the nirvana is like autopilot when you can get your team and your direct reports to manage everything day to day that you don't have to. And what that can lead to is for you to get detached from that group. I remember so where this really stuck in my head, because like this is not my personality at all, is to get detached from my people, is that, you know, being a chief in the Navy, there was a particular day where I just had like meeting, talk to an individual, meeting, talk to an individual. And through the whole day, I'm interacting with direct reports, right? I'm going to a meeting, I'm interacting with direct report. I'm going to a meeting, interact with direct report. And I catch one of my sailors around just after lunch. And I ask a question, and he's like, "Oh, well, I didn't see you all day. I, went ahead and did this." I'm like, "What do you mean you didn't see me all day?" And I was like, "I've been around all day. Like I've talked to so many people this morning." And he's like, "No, I honestly I hadn't seen you." And so there is a difference in perception from their day to day, that person's day to day, and my day to day. And my day to day had me interacting with all sorts of people. But on his day to day, he saw me once, and it was directly after lunch. And I don't have that big of a group of people. And so that really nailed home that I need to be even more deliberate in being in front of people so that they can see me and I am accessible to them. And then I also see, all of the what we call the deck plate. We can see all the deck plate problems going on, or the day to day. And if we're not deliberate about that, then we become detached from that. And when we become detached from that, then we really can't get a pulse on culture, environment, and the going ons in our people's lives. And so I would say that the first toxic trait that we need to shake off is, instead of being okay with not being with our people, making a deliberate adjustment to put ourselves in front of our people as often as we can, because reality is, even though we perceive to be around a lot, that's not the case.
And talk about a struggle as a leader in this day and age, hybrid teams and working from home teams and that stuff. I mean, this is my home office, right? This is my workplace, right?
Yeah.
So the struggle of interacting with people now, when you don't have an office to go to, when you've got a hybrid team, you've got an admin team, that may be working in office, but the sales and service team are spread across the country. My follow-up question to your statement there is, what would you recommend doing as a leader in those instances? How do you get in front of your people? How do you make yourself available and promote that same culture?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so we're all busy professional adults, right? Like we all have a lot of things we have to do, and then every position that we're in, there are varying loads of work. But when you dig down, like you really dig down, there are things that we are legally, like we're obligated, we have to do these things, right? So you can't stop that. And then, but there are other things that we do. And those other things that we do are, you can break them down into what we would be like a money-making activity and something else. And when I say money-making activity, it doesn't have to be directly that, but this is like things that actually matter that we do. And when you start
something that impacts the business, you're supporting orders, you're supporting sales, admin, customer support. Yep.
The term or the principle that really hits it home is the Pareto Principle, the 20-80 rule. 20% of your actions yield 80% of the result. That topic has been like digested at like ad nauseum. But the point is that there is a small amount of things that we do that have a very large impact. And then honestly, you got to start unloading the self-loading, if you know what I mean. Like, get rid of all the additional things that you are doing, because probably the one most important thing that you are supposed to be doing that you're not doing is being in front of your people. So how we do that is start to look at, like, what is the necessities that I have to do? Then what is the things that actually yield results? And after that, prioritize getting in front of your people. And it doesn't have to be like, hey, what are you doing today? What's like, your plan for this or that? It, like, the more important question is like, hey, how's it going? Like, haven't seen you for a while. How's your day been? How's home going? Like, those questions are more important oftentimes than like the what's your plan for the day questions, right?
Right.
And so honestly, I think that if you want to make an impact, like figure out, have that like question every single day with every single one of your people, or as many people as you can. Some of us have really large teams and that's impractical, right? But at least get your main direct reports and have that conversation of 5 minutes or so, because it goes a long way.
And if you do have a large team, to your point, engage your management, or create a team leader approach where you can still manage directly and interact directly with 5 to 7 people, and create that culture, and then instill that into them to reach more people, right? And that's how culture spreads. Another point you made in talking about making the time and asking them how they are. One of my favorite pieces of advice that was given to me, I couldn't tell you where I picked it up, whether it was a podcast or the multitude of sales trainings that I listened to, but there was somebody that said, when you ask somebody how they are, ask them twice. And the reason behind that is that, think about every interaction. Hey, how's it going? Oh, good. It's really good. That's fine. And then you ask a second time, like, no, like, how's it going? And get them to stop doing that auto response and really get them to have a conversation.
Yeah. Like this is not an exchange of salutations.
Exactly.
Right. Like
I'm really truly asking, how are you? Right. And tell them, I want to know. And that may be uncomfortable for some people, in the professional workplace, but I think it's vitally important to get to know your team and think of them as an extension of your family. It's your workplace family.
I agree. Let's kind of tie all this together then, so in the domains of teachers and coaches and visionary, now we're talking teaching, right? Like, because at some point we have to multiply and we have to teach leaders leadership, right? And so in the first topic, you have to teach leaders and even show leaders that failing our people, there's a learning curve to that, but they have to also learn, right? This makes sense. Like, so I could very easily see several personalities that I know where it would be like, well, that sucks, like, that sucks. Right. And so we have to find the moments where our direct reports are having those like failing their people moments are happening, like how we capitalize on like that lesson learned. You're like, okay.
Right. I'd even venture, here, I'll put a challenge out to all viewers out there. Here's your challenge this week. Take a look at the last 6 to 12 months and see how many people you may have lost in your company, and go back and talk to, figure out the high level stuff. Talk to HR and ask them why that person left, right? I want you to go evaluate that as a leader and ask yourself, what could I have done personally different that would have prevented this person from leaving? And take that as a personal failure. That's my challenge. It may not apply, but I challenge you to dig deep in your organization and really truly absorb that failure lesson and take it forward, because I think that you'll realize that you have much more impact on people's lives than you could even imagine.
Yeah, I really like that's a really good one. All right. And then our second topic, and teaching people how to shake toxic leadership qualities. I would say that one of the bigger things that leaders should take on is being receptive and open to criticism, and sometimes seeking it, right? Because more times than not, even though we're saying, hey, take on the role of a teacher, our people are teaching us, right? Just the previous topic, we had to have someone fail and like learn from all the impact that was in that person's life in order for us to learn. Is our people teaching us? And so we have to be open to being taught as well. And so there's a myriad of toxic leadership traits. We talked about my like flavor of the day. We did. But if you are trying to impact or improve how you do things, how your organization runs, then you have to be receptive to feedback. And sometimes that feedback is going to expose something you don't like.
Absolutely.
Right. Awesome. So that wraps it up for our latest and greatest episode. If you like what we're putting out and you want to keep hearing what we have to say about leadership and you want to improve your organization, like, follow, subscribe to us. We're going to be putting out more great videos in the future. So have a nice day.
Thanks, guys.